talk about Israel and the genocide that's been going on in Gaza, because I've had two separate conversations. Like, this just kind of organically happened over the last couple days. Last night, I was in a server, and someone who I've thought generally had some decent opinions was essentially trying to say that they were struggling to communicate with people that were like Israeli citizens or IDF, some people that supported what was going on over there, and they were having difficulty essentially kind of debating or arguing against them. They felt it was good to reach out and have those conversations. And the fact that there are people that are still defending this just frustrated me to no end. And then this morning I woke up and I'm checking my social media, and what do I find in my social media? In a trans group of all groups, a trans support group in Facebook, somebody was complaining that they got blocked by a friend of theirs because they made a post that said that as a Jewish person, they support their homeland of Israel, and that it was anti-Semitic that they were being blocked by these other people. And I just want to talk about this. I have to rant about this because I cannot wrap my head around what logical loops you would have to do to like justify this position to yourself. This would be like, just imagine for a second that with everything going on in the world, that someone comes along and they say that they support Russia right now. They say, well, as a Russian, I support Russia. I think it's within reason to ask that person, well, what do you think about what's going on in Ukraine? That doesn't mean that you want to ethnically kill every single Russian on the planet. That doesn't mean you're Russian phobic. That means that you're asking a reasonable question given the stance of their country and what they are currently doing in their administration and leadership. And what I keep seeing is people acting like if I say, if somebody tells me that they are pro-Russia or they love Russia, they love their country, and I ask them, like, well, wait a minute, what do you think of what's going on in Ukraine? That means, like, if I have a Russian neighbor, I must dislike that neighbor or I must hate that neighbor. That is absolutely ludicrous. I don't think that we would, I think that type of reasoning is just silly. Like, obviously, you're asking because of what's going on over there. And if my neighbor was like, oh no, I don't support what's going on in with Ukraine, I would just be like, oh no, okay, that's cool. I'm not going to just assume that because they're like proud of being Russian or something like that, that must mean by default that they are genocidal or something like that. But it warrants the question because of what is going on. Just like if somebody hears that you're from America, I think it would, and you say something like, if you're talking to an international group, say online, and you say something like, oh, I'm very proud of being American, I think it warrants some questions about, like, well, what do you think about what's going on with Trump and, the Caribbean? What did you think about what happened in Venezuela? What do you think about this nationalist rhetoric coming from the White House or ICE? These are reasonable questions to ask someone because of what's going on in our country. And I don't think asking questions about that or seeing, like, what do you think about the Trump administration? Obviously, I can say that I don't support the Trump administration, and I think that the people that have been bombing those boats should be held accountable in a criminal court. That does not mean that I hate all Americans or I want innocent American people to be killed. But then when it comes to Israel, if you say something like, I don't support the government of Israel, I don't support Netanyahu, I think that Netanyahu and every single person that has pulled a trigger or dropped a bomb on innocent civilians should be prosecuted. That's not anti-Jew. Like, that doesn't mean that I don't like my Jewish neighbors or that I'm holding all Jews accountable for this. But I feel like when people frame questions like that, like, oh, why am I being blocked for saying this? When they cannot stand to be questioned about it. Like, why would you question me about Gaza if I say I support Israel? I think it's obvious why people are questioning you about it. What do you think, Lilith?
Hold on a moment.
All right. While you take your moment, I'll continue my rant. Another similar thing. I'm from the South in America, and for those of you that are not from the United States, the South over here, a little over 150 years ago, is like the late 1800s. There was a massive civil war over here fought over slavery, and the idea that some people thought it was fine to preserve that way of life, that they wanted to be able to hold on to their slaves. I feel like when somebody says that they are a proud Southerner, that might mean that they just enjoy the culture of the South currently. Like they're proud of their family, or they're proud of their culture and food or something like that. Like maybe they're from Louisiana and they're proud of Louisiana culture, or Alabama and they're proud of whatever family lineage they have for whatever reason. But the moment that they say that they are very proud of the South, especially if they have a Confederate flag or they mention anything like to do historically, I feel like it's a fair question to ask them, like, well, what did you think about the Civil War? Like, because there's been this long perpetuated myth about the South for this lost cause fight that they had, as if, reframing the Confederacy, reframing this like as what is essentially like a slavers revolt against the United States government, framing it as if they were just trying to preserve their way of life, and they were noble gentlemen going to war, fighting an honorable cause. That is the this lost cause myth about the Confederacy.
Yeah, I mean that was because they had that whole the whole thing of like, the war of northern aggression, and not like they didn't like to call it the Civil War afterwards, because their heritage is Southern, and so they have to, they're proud of their Southern heritage. They don't want to be listed as like, the pro slavery side.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with the idea of, like, let's say you grew up in the South and you enjoy Southern cooking and that type of thing. I don't think there's an issue with saying I'm proud of my culture, like currently, especially if you're from an area where there's like a hodgepodge cultural mix, like in Atlanta or something like that. I could see people saying, like, they love where they grew up, or they love the communities that they grew up in. Like, that makes sense. But once we start talking historically, like, remember, the South wasn't even fully desegregated until the late 60s, early 70s. All right, that wasn't the Civil War. That went all the way up until the 1970s. So I feel like whenever people start talking about, like, being proud of, like, Southern culture, like, it's reasonable to ask them, like, well, wait, what do you mean exactly? Because of the idea that of this lost cause, like you said, because of the idea of the war of northern aggression and that type of thing. But
right.
if we, sorry, go ahead.
I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah, but if we flip it and you say, well, I think what Israel has done is terrible. Like, you can look at pictures of Gaza. You can look at what has happened. They have sniped children directly, like lots of dead children from sniper fire. That is not accidental. That is inhumane. That is war crimes. You can see the absolute utter destruction that they've rained upon these cities. We've seen them starving people out. We saw them telling people to go to, like, Rafah, and then they would bomb Rafah. We saw them bombing Doctors Without Borders. We specifically targeting them after they knew that they were going to be there to try to bring food to these people. We've seen them block aid over and over. We've seen IDF soldiers filming and mocking civilians that they've killed. We know that the largest amount of population that they've killed has been innocent women and children during these strikes. But that's the government of Israel. That's Bibi Netanyahu. That's all of his goons that have done this. And I would say that every single one of them that pulled those triggers or dropped those bombs, I don't want to hear no just following orders, right? That's The Hague. They should stand at criminal international courts. Like, other countries should have gotten involved and stopped this already. And that's not me being anti-Jewish. That's me being anti-genocide. I don't care if it's Russia invading Ukraine, if it was the Confederacy in the South, or if it is Israel. If there was like if there was a country like Translovakia or something like that, and the majority of people in Translovakia are all trans people, and they were murdering their neighbors in the same way that Israel is doing, I would say, hey, those trans people over there, that trans government is genocidal, and that they are absolutely slaughtering people. I think it is silly to pretend that you cannot condemn Israel, that you cannot question what Israel is doing without being labeled anti-Semitic. And just for the record, only the left really cares about being labeled as like anti-Semitic and stuff like that. The right wingers wear that shit proud. Like, you can just look at conservatives, and there's a giant contingent. It's why Ben Shapiro has like fallen off so hard. There are a lot of anti-Jewish people in general on the conservative side. Candace Owens broke away from the Daily Wire because she's peddling this conspiracy theory about Jewish people. And like, I recognize that, the suffering of within the history of these people, and what was done to Jewish people is not something that should have happened throughout history. I can easily condemn that as well. But there's no hypocrisy in saying that I condemn the historical atrocities that were done to Jewish people, especially during World War II. However, I condemn the current government of Israel for what it is doing, for the genocide that it has perpetrated. We can do both of those things. It's not like an either or thing. And just because you condemn a government for what it's doing and the atrocities that's committing, that does not mean that you are targeting that ethnicity of that people. I don't hate all Russians when I say that I think we need to fight Russia in Ukraine. I think that if Putin tries to push further into Europe, we need to fight him there as well. He needs to be stopped. That doesn't mean that I hate the ethnic groups that make up Russians. That means that I don't like the war of aggression that Russia is fighting, and I don't like the genocide that Israel is perpetuating, just like I don't like the attacks on innocent people that the United States government is carrying out, like top down.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of awful things over here in America. I think, what was it that I know you had mentioned the it was a Facebook post, right?
Yeah, that Facebook group post this morning is what made me decide to talk about this tonight, just because, it was like I got into a debate last night about on Israel, and I was still kind of like annoyed about that debate. And then this morning I saw this Facebook group, and it was a trans support group, and it was somebody saying that as a Jewish woman, it upsets me that when I say I support my homeland of Israel, like, I get blocked by people.
Yeah, I think it was like the way that they had actually said it was like, I say that, I'm what was it that she said? She said that she's, every time she says that she's in support of Israel.
Yeah, that she ends up getting blocked. And by the way, I went and looked at the comments on that post. Every single person that basically asked her about the genocide or said, well, there's kind of a genocide going on, she was down there trying to debate them in the comments about genocide, or calling them anti-Semitic and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, of course, that's what's actually getting you blocked. It's not that you are, like, you support Israel's existence. I don't think like anyone is going to say that Israel doesn't have a right to exist.
Yeah, I think it's the nuance. It's like, oh, well, if you switched it around, and you're like, well, every time I say I'm in, because when you say in support of X nation, when you say that I support X nation, that's not like I am proud to be, American or whatever, or that I have pride in my country. You're literally saying that I support whatever they are currently doing at the time. And it's different. Like, that's a different idea. Like, it's a whole different idea. Because if you say, well, I'm in support of, I'm Russian and I'm in support of Russia, that means that you're in support of what Russia is doing right now to Ukraine. That's why it's like you can be proud to be an American, but if you're like, well, I'm in support of America because I'm an American, well, then you're supporting all of the stuff that America, all the crappy things that America is doing right now, which is awful.
Right. Give me 1 second. I have to cough. I'm sorry. I am still very sick. I agree entirely. Like you don't have to support like every single thing that America does just to be like patriotic or to say that like, well, I'm proud to be an American or whatever. But at this point in time, people are going to ask you if you know you support what like the government is currently doing, and that's a reasonable thing for them to ask. However, let's take a look at this. All right. So I'm going to switch the screen. You can see this right here. This is Pew Research. And this is basically just asking people on their opinion whether they support what's going on with the Israeli military response against Hamas. Now, keep in mind, this is from last year. It's from May 30th, 2024 is when this poll came out. And this was asked, they're asking Israeli citizens. So now we're talking about people in Israel, their views on the military response to Hamas. I just want to point this chart right here. You see that? Okay, so this says percentage of who say the military response against Hamas in Gaza. So this is just asking them broadly, do they support the military response? 39% said been about right. Not gone far enough is 34%. Gone too far is 19%. 7% said that they didn't know, and 1% refused. So now we're talking, in general, majority of citizens here. 39 is say that they've done about right, which I would call is the genocide. They're saying the genocide is about right. And then 34% says that they need to go further than the genocide that they've already been carrying out. So we're looking at around 73% of that population. And it's saying that it's fine what they've done in Gaza and what they've done to the Palestinian people. That's why I get so mad about this. Because whenever we're talking about, like, this is flat out a genocide, the general public within Israel supports what the IDF has done. They support the genocide. That's why it is worthwhile to ask them to clarify their position. Because if we know that the majority of their population, 3/4 of their population, supports what has been done, then it is a reasonable question to ask them what is their position on this. Because maybe they're in the 19% that say that they've gone too far. But the fact that majority of them are saying that this genocide is fine, it blows my mind. I don't understand how they can support this. That's why it is fair to ask them what their position is on the genocide, because so many of them support it, just general public. Now, if you flip it around, you look at America and you say, like, look at like what's going on in America with like, invading Venezuela, bombing those boats and stuff like that, you do not see 75% of the population approving of it. You would only see like 75%, let's say, of Republicans supporting it. And I don't even know if 75% would support it. But staying on Israel, here's an article from Al Jazeera. And this is from August of last year. Half of U.S. voters believe Israel committing genocide in Gaza. Okay, poll says. So 6 in 10 U.S. voters also oppose Washington sending more military aid to Israel. And this is a Quinnipiac poll. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just showing the share of U.S. Voters who believe genocide is taking place includes 77% of Democrats, 51% of independents. All right. So a large majority of Republicans, 64%, do not think that Israel is committing genocide. All right. And that's just destruction right there of the Gaza Strip that you can see in that photo. I don't know how you reach these people via debate. I don't know why you would say, you know what we need? We need to just debate these people. The videos are out there. The photos are out there. We have doctors coming back and saying this. We even have the IDF releasing information saying that the vast majority of people that they killed were civilians. And we still end up having Republicans, 64%, do not think that Israel is committing genocide. We just got information that 2,700 families, 2,700 familial bloodlines were wiped out during the Israel-Hamas war. If you don't even call it a war, right? And every time you talk about this, people just want to say, oh, well, do you condemn Hamas? Do you condemn Hamas? And they'll say, well, it's a complicated question because Hamas was their government before the war, and Hamas has been their government since the war. At the end of the day, we can say, I condemn the terrorists that perpetrated October 7th. Easy, easy peasy. I condemn that. They should not be killing innocent people. They should not be abducting innocent people. They should not be SAing anyone. All right, none of that should have been happening to anyone. I also do not think that Hamas should continue any sort of like terrorist attack. That's it. That's as easy as it is. Now, why is it so difficult for Israel to say, yeah, we shouldn't have been committing genocide. We should not have been sniping children. There were stories just heartbreaking of like bombing hospitals, bombing schools. They went into a maternity ward where there were a bunch of babies in incubators, and they cleared out all the nurses and medical personnel. This was early on in the conflict. And they said, oh, don't worry, we're going to send people back here to take care of this. And they let those babies in those incubators starve to death and die. I don't know how anyone can look at that with a straight face and say, that's not genocide. That those aren't innocent civilians. It's a literal babies in incubators. What is more inhumane than that? Like, it almost sounds like cartoon world villain behavior. Straight up sniping children. You know, I cannot tolerate this narrative that, oh, this isn't a genocide. We have to tap dance and play around because we don't want to offend the ethnicity of these people. Fuck their ethnicity. It doesn't matter who's doing this. It wouldn't matter, again, if they're Russians, if they're Americans, if this was trans people doing this, I'd be like, I'd condemn them too. That's fucked up. You shouldn't be killing innocent people. And I know I got worked up and I went on a tirade here. It's just, I've kept seeing these narratives over and over and over. And it's difficult to talk to people about this subject without them getting very defensive or without them trying to spin around like they just throw anti-Semitism out there as if it's like a shield that protects them from anything. And I know that for a lot of Jewish people that have also protested this and that are also going out there and fighting against this, right? We've seen rabbis getting attacked and arrested arguing against this. All right, it's very clear and obvious that there are plenty of Jewish people that do not support this. But we see right now 64% of Republicans support what they're doing. This is clearly not just a Jewish problem. We have conservative Americans and the majority of Republicans supporting this, right? That's the second largest party in the United States. This is clearly an issue that we're like, the world is having an ethical crisis at the moment, all right? And we are, as a species, failing to meet this bar. We're failing to stop genocides. We're failing each other, and our countries are going to suffer for it. The people going to war are going to suffer being traumatized. A huge majority of people are going to end up being murdered for this stuff. And for what? Vengeance? Over some stupid land and borders? It's difficult to not get disheartened looking at this stuff, but I can tell you right now that debating them on this is not going to solve these issues. There needs to be international intervention. The UN already should have been involved in this. We already should have had peacekeepers going there. The United States should have been involved in settling this and stopping this. We had Biden for 4 years, utter failure on this. He's basically a Zionist himself. It's just, it's a shame that so many people have died. And at the end of the day, we're still having to debate whether it's even a genocide or not. As if people can't tell that starving babies, starving mass amounts of people, bombing innocent people, sniping children, as if we can't tell that that's wrong. I don't know. I don't know how you reform that. Do you have
Well,
any
I mean,
thoughts on that?
part part of the problem that you run into is you're having to fight a bunch of propaganda. Israel is really good at pushing. I mean, just like the United States and our social media problems, but Israel has their same problems. Israel has um, their own like propaganda, machine in spreading misinformation, downplaying what's going on in Gaza. Also, they put narratives that are pro-Israel and anti-Gaza or anti-Hamas. Um, so you have to fight that on the ground too. So and they also have active government like shutdowns of media, any independent media that reports on it.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's something where it feels like this is just it's a failure all around on the international community. Like something should have been done about this before, and I have no idea why no one has acted on this. It's just ridiculous. And I feel like a lot of people, when it comes to Israel, they'll say, well, you can't understand the complicated history unless you go and you read the last 100 years of history. It's not that complicated. You can see what happened after World War II when they established Israel as a country. And yeah, there's been like wars. There was the Nakba after that. And I would say like the Nakba just never ended. And Israel has steadily encroached on Palestinian territory ever since then and just trimmed it off every single chance that they get. So at the end of the day, you can take it within a historical context and we can look at contemporary accounts of what's going on. It is a genocide. And I feel like that kind of wraps
Yeah.
up my thoughts on Israel, unless you have something else you want to add.
Oh, just that, is like any country, you have the country, which is the government. You have the government, and then you have the people. They are two separate entities. You have America, and then like the United States, and you have the United States citizens. And just because you have a government that does horrible things like what the United States is doing right now, not only to its own people, but to people abroad, and just the world in general. Um, it's not the majority of the citizens who are like doing these things. It's literally the people who are in power. So, yeah, I feel like a lot of people when you're younger, especially with the way that United States has pushed our nationalistic propaganda when like you're like I'm sure you remember when you were little you sang a lot of like America songs and the whitewashing of our history and what really happened, how it was like it was happy colonization. We didn't really like, steal and rape and murder for people's land. That wasn't what we did. It was like a, communal thing. They just gave us things. And then like having all that the nationalistic pride. And then as you grow up, like it's easier. It's very simple to like anybody we are warring with is the enemy. And so all the people are just generally bad. Like this, you know, you paint people with like a broad brush. Everybody in Russia is bad. Like we had we had the Cold War where we had McCarthyism where everybody was a freaking communist. And then that it was easy. It's easy. You don't have to use your brain. Oh, well, you're Russian, so you're obviously bad. You're obviously a commie. you know? And so there are people that do think that way. They think very black and white. Oh, well, you're part of X group, so you have to be bad. Even though a group is not a monolith.